I'm not ashamed.
Who were the 12 men chosen by Jesus to be his apostles? This is the question we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Matthew on walking through the Bible.
His word, the glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Matthew chapter 10. We're going to be reading from verses 1 to 4. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Matthew chapter 10, beginning at verse 1. And when he had called his 12 disciples to him, he gave them power over unclean spirits to cast them out and to heal all kinds of sickness and all kinds of diseases. Now the names of the 12 apostles are these. First, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew his brother. James the son of Zebedee, and John his brother. Philip and Bartholomew. Thomas and Matthew the tax collector. James the son of Alphaeus, and Lebbaeus, whose surname was Thaddeus. Simon the Canaanite, and Judas Iscariot, who also betrayed him. Chronologically, verses 1 to 4 of this chapter most likely belong before Matthew 5, as Luke connects Jesus naming his apostles around the time he preached the Sermon on the Mount. Why did Matthew put the names of the disciples here? Well, for one, it was only in chapter 9 that he identified himself as a disciple, so to name them all before identifying himself would have been confusing. But perhaps he did so because it provided a good segue into the next section of chapter 10, which occurs sometimes later. All of this is speculation and is not really important, for Matthew does not give us an exact chronology of events. At that time, it appeared that Jesus had more than 12 disciples, people who followed him around to hear his teachings. But of these disciples, he selected 12 to be his apostles. The term apostle means sent, and it would be these men that Jesus would send out in this chapter to preach the gospel to Israel. These became known as the apostles of Jesus Christ. Only 2 more people would be added to their number, namely Matthias in Acts 1 and later Saul of Tarsus, who became known as Paul. Why is this important? Because people claim today that they are apostles of Jesus Christ. In order to be an apostle of Jesus, according to Acts 1, 21 and 22, you had to be a follower of Jesus following his baptism of John all the way to his ascension to heaven after the resurrection. Furthermore, you had to be selected by Jesus himself. Even Matthias, who was selected after Jesus' ascension, is said to be selected by Jesus according to Acts 1:24. No person can claim these qualifications, so there are no new modern-day apostles of Jesus Christ. Who were the 12 that Jesus selected? Well, a few of them we know a great deal about, while some of them we know hardly anything about. Whenever a list of apostles is given, invariably Peter is always listed at the top. Some believe that this means he was the most important apostle, but nowhere in Scripture did Jesus ever say this, nor Peter ever say this. Peter, we know, is the most outspoken of the apostles, and is the one who confessed that Jesus was the Son of God in Matthew 16, so this is the likely reason that he is placed first. Peter was from Bethsaida, as John 1 tells us. He preached the first sermon on the day of Pentecost, preached to the first Gentile converts to Christ in Acts 10, and was the writer of 1st and 2nd Peter. Andrew is Peter's brother, and according to John 1, he is the one who identified Jesus to Peter as the Messiah. James and John were also brothers, sons of Zebedee. In Mark 3:17, Jesus gave these 2 nicknames, referring to them as sons of thunder. James would become the first apostle to be martyred for the name of Christ in Acts 12, while John would be the last apostle to die near the close of the 1st century. James did not write any of the books of the Bible, while John wrote the Gospel of John, the epistles of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, as well as the book of Revelation. Peter, Andrew, James, and John could be considered Jesus' inner circle, as they are often mentioned of together, although it would be only Peter, James, and John who would see Jesus transfigured in Matthew 17. Next, we have listed Philip and Bartholomew. Philip is not the same Philip we see in Acts 8, but he is the same Philip who in John 1 went and told Nathanael about Jesus. It is believed that Nathanael and Bartholomew are the same man, with Nathanael being like Peter, a man with 2 names. Next, we have Thomas and Matthew. Thomas is best remembered for not initially believing the accounts of Jesus' resurrection until he saw Jesus, at which point he believed. And of course, Matthew is the tax collector, the one who wrote this book. Of the next 3 apostles, we know hardly anything about them from the Scriptures themselves. We have James, the son of Alphaeus, sometimes referred to as James the Less, possibly due to his height and to distinguish him from the other James. We have Lebbaeus, who is also known as Thaddeus or Judas, son of or brother of James in the books of Acts and Luke. And then we have Simon the Canaanite, or Simon Zelotes, in the books of Acts and Luke. That we don't know much about these three apostles is not to diminish their significance, but simply state the scriptures don't speak much about their work. And finally, we have the betrayer, Judas Iscariot. He is always listed last in the list of the apostles in the Gospels, and always with his epitaph, the traitor or betrayer of Christ. Prophecy said that one of the Messiah's followers would betray him, and thus a man with a heart who would do just that, namely Judas, was selected. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Matthew 10, 5 to 15, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time.
I'm not ashamed.
Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.
Of his cross.